The tension in the room was palpable. Captain Lan and his men remained on their knees, humbled before Lu Shang. The blonde-haired general, flanked by a squad of soldiers, burst into the room, his presence demanding attention. His eyes darted around, searching for the legendary figure he had heard about. "Where is Lu Shang?" he demanded, his voice echoing off the walls. His gaze landed on Hong Yu, who stood with her arms crossed, her expression inscrutable. Hong Yu's silence spoke volumes, but it did nothing to ease the general's growing impatience. His eyes fell on Captain Lan, still kneeling, and a flicker of confusion crossed his face. Why was Lan kneeling? He scanned the room again, his gaze landing on Lu Shang. This young man, with his calm demeanor and piercing eyes, seemed out of place among the seasoned soldiers. The general's curiosity was piqued. One of the soldiers leaned in, whispering to the general, "This one is unknown to us. Could he be Lu Shang?" The general stroked his chin, his eyes narrowing as he assessed Lu Shang. He seemed too young to possess such power. The man who had approached the general smirked, suggesting that perhaps the legendary master had already left. The general's surprise was evident. Could it be true? With a deep breath, the general turned to Hong Yu. "Did you see a supreme grandmaster here moments ago?" The air was thick with anticipation as Hong Yu, arms firmly crossed, studied the blonde-haired general. Her eyes then moved to Lu Shang, who stood calmly beside her, his hands still in his pockets. She gestured towards him, her voice steady and clear. "This is Lu Shang, the great master you're looking for." Gasps rippled through the room. The captain's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're joking," he sputtered, his gaze darting between Hong Yu and Lu Shang. "He can't possibly be a martial grandmaster. He's too young." Hong Yu hesitated, touching her face nervously. "It's a long story," she began, but before she could continue, a commanding voice cut through the murmur of the crowd. "Permission to enter," the voice called out, drawing everyone's attention. The soldiers parted, revealing Admiral He Dingjun. His presence immediately commanded respect, and the room fell silent. With his hands casually tucked into his pockets, he strode towards Lu Shang, his black hair contrasting sharply with the stern expression on his face. Admiral He Dingjun was one of the most respected figures in the Eastern Military Zone, known for his immense strength and strategic prowess. He halted before Lu Shang and extended his hand in a gesture of respect. "Heroes emerge while still young," he declared, a warm smile breaking his usual stern demeanor. Lu Shang, maintaining his composure, accepted the handshake. The admiral's words echoed through the room, cementing Lu Shang's status in the eyes of all present. The blonde-haired captain, still struggling to process the revelation, watched as Admiral He Dingjun introduced himself. "Admiral He Dingjun," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "It is an honor to meet you, Great Master Lu Shang." The room buzzed with disbelief. Soldiers exchanged incredulous glances as the blonde-haired general's eyes widened. "This young man is Lu Shang?" he stammered. It was a statement wrapped in a question, his mind struggling to reconcile the image of this youthful figure with the tales of a supreme great master. One soldier, unable to contain his curiosity, whispered to his neighbor, "I heard he's not even 20 years old." This revelation rippled through the room, amplifying the shock. Lu Shang, maintaining an indifferent demeanor, shook Admiral He Dingjun's hand. "It's an honor to meet you, Admiral," he said, his voice steady. Internally, however, he felt a familiar detachment. The accolades and recognition were like floating clouds, fleeting and insubstantial. He had grown desensitized to the constant praise and wanted nothing more than to avoid it. Admiral He Dingjun, still gripping Lu Shang's hand, began to speak warmly. "I've already arranged for your paperwork to be processed," he explained. "Your merit points accumulation is underway. Perhaps you would join me for tea in my office? We could discuss your future prospects." Lu Shang looked directly into the Admiral's eyes and politely declined. "Thank you for the offer, Admiral, but I need some time to rest. I've been through quite a bit recently." With that, he turned and began to walk away, his back to the Admiral and the soldiers, each step echoing in the silent room. As Lu Shang exited the evaluation area, the Admiral and the soldiers watched in silence. Admiral He Dingjun's mind raced. Lu Shang was only 19 years old. His own grandson was older. The Admiral could hardly fathom such monstrous talent. He envisioned Lu Shang wielding a spear, an embodiment of a martial saint, a figure of unparalleled power and grace. "He's our hope," the Admiral thought. With Lu Shang, the Eastern Military Zone might finally produce a 9th-rank martial saint. His heart swelled with pride and anticipation. This news needed to reach Marshal Shi Hongfei at Central HQ immediately. The marshal would be overjoyed to learn about Lu Sheng's potential. Admiral He Dingjun turned his attention back to Hong Yu. His gaze was sharp but laden with a peculiar warmth. Hong Yu, he began, his voice steady and authoritative. I am aware of the interactions between General Lu Sheng and you these past days. He has just joined our district, and it is imperative that he feels supported and guided. If there is anything he does not understand or needs clarification on, it is your duty to assist him. Hong Yu, with a disciplined grace, placed her hands on her abdomen, closed her eyes, and bowed her head in deference. Admiral, you need not worry. We will ensure that General Lu Sheng receives all the guidance he requires. Admiral He Dingjun observed her for a moment, his mind seemingly elsewhere. His expression softened slightly, and he took a step closer. Remember, he said quietly, use your beauty to your advantage. Win him over if you can. Hong Yu's eyes widened in confusion. She didn't immediately grasp the full weight of the Admiral's words. Seeing her perplexity, Admiral He Dingjun continued, his voice lowering conspiratorially. General Lu Sheng's potential is far greater than we can imagine. His genes, they are incredibly valuable. Do you understand what I mean? A rush of realization and embarrassment washed over Hong Yu. Her cheeks flushed a deep crimson as she averted her gaze, her thoughts a whirlwind. She clenched her fist and brought it close to her face, the notion of a relationship with Lu Sheng now occupying her mind. While she found herself willing, she also knew that Lu Sheng's interest would be the deciding factor. As Admiral He Dingjun walked away, his figure slowly receding into the distance, a sudden burst of activity erupted around Hong Yu. Soldiers, eager and curious, crowded around her, bombarding her with questions. Tell us about General Lu Sheng, they demanded, their voices overlapping in excitement. Hong Yu took a deep breath, composed herself, and began to recount what she knew of Lu Sheng. She spoke of his incredible prowess, his calm demeanor, and the potential that everyone saw in him. The story of Lu Sheng, the young but immensely powerful martial artist, spread like wildfire throughout the Ninth War Zone. Several hours had passed since the intense events of the day. The sky was painted in hues of twilight, and Lu Sheng stood in the residential area designated for generals. It was a peaceful moment, one that allowed him to reflect on the path he had walked so far. In front of him stood two soldiers who greeted him with the respect accorded to any general. Lu Sheng acknowledged them with a nod, his mind elsewhere. The residential zone had a distinct military aesthetic, reminiscent of scenes from countless war movies. Though smaller in scale, it still exuded an air of importance and discipline. As he walked around, Lu Sheng couldn't help but notice the meticulous organization and the sense of order that permeated the area. This was a place of high regard, a sanctuary for those who had earned their stripes. As Lu Sheng continued his stroll, a man with vibrant purple hair approached him, his demeanor cheerful and welcoming. Placing a hand on his chest in a respectful salute, the man introduced himself as Wang Yin. Lu Sheng returned the greeting with a slight bow of his head, intrigued by the newcomer. Wang Yin gestured towards a mansion in the vicinity. This mansion has been specially prepared for you by Admiral He Dingjun, he explained. The mansion, though not the largest, was among the top 5 in the 9th Military District, signifying its importance. The soldiers nearby bowed their heads in deference, adding to the atmosphere of respect. Wang Yin continued, Admiral He Dingjun has also arranged for several special vehicles for your use. When you have time, you can choose one. With a flourish, he produced a sleek, state-of-the-art mobile phone and handed it to Lu Sheng. If you have any doubts or need assistance, you can contact me immediately. Lu Sheng took the mobile phone, its shiny surface reflecting the fading light. He felt a surge of happiness. He had been considering upgrading his phone, and this new device was perfect. The gesture, though simple, was a reminder of the esteem in which he was held. Wang Yin placed his hand on his chest once more, bowed his head, and said, Your merit points will be fully calculated before dinner. He then asked for permission to withdraw. Lu Sheng, appreciating the man's respectful demeanor and efficient service, granted him permission with a nod. As Lu Sheng stepped into the mansion, he was greeted by a young maid with bright orange hair tied into 2 neat ponytails. She bowed her head respectfully, her demeanor both professional and welcoming, offering a glimpse of normalcy and domestic comfort. Lu Sheng approached her, his expression calm and composed. Could you please inform the chef to prepare something for me to eat? He requested. The maid closed her eyes briefly in acknowledgement. Understood, she responded, her voice polite and efficient. She quickly disappeared into the mansion's interior, leaving Lu Shang to explore his new surroundings. 10 minutes later, Lu Shang found himself seated at a grand dining table, a lavish banquet spread out before him. The chefs had outdone themselves, presenting a variety of dishes that tantalized the senses. It was a far cry from the canned food and mutant beast meat he had grown accustomed to. He picked up a bowl of steaming noodles and took his first bite. The explosion of flavors was a revelation, a stark reminder of what he had been missing. This is heaven, he thought, savoring each mouthful. The texture, the taste, everything was perfect. For a moment, he allowed himself to forget the weight of his responsibilities and simply enjoy the meal. As Lu Shang was engrossed in his feast, his mobile phone buzzed insistently. He paused, reluctantly setting down his chopsticks, and glanced at the screen. A flood of unread messages awaited him, most of them from his sister. He opened the first message and began to read. His sister's excitement leaped off the screen. She was about to become a level 2 martial artist and had recently won first place in the Baihe City Student Martial Arts Tournament. Her joy was tempered with frustration, however, as she complained about the numerous challengers who pestered her daily. They were arrogant but weak, and she was itching to teach them a lesson. One message caught his attention. "Why haven't you checked your messages in so many days? Mom is asking when you'll come back." There was a note of sadness in her words, a longing for his presence. Lu Shang's heart ached with a mixture of pride and guilt. He had been so consumed by his duties that he had neglected his family. He quickly typed a reply, explaining that he had been on a mission and had forgotten to check his phone. He reassured her that he was fine and promised to visit them for New Year's. Lu Shang's phone buzzed again, a new message lighting up the screen. It was from his sister, Lu Qinghe, who had responded to his earlier message. "Damn, brother, so you still knew how to respond," she teased. Her playful banter was a welcome respite, bringing a smile to his face. She continued, expressing her relief and sending a cute emoji of a rabbit holding a heart, a light-hearted gesture that conveyed her affection and concern. As Lu Shang scrolled through his message feed, another message popped up in the group chat. One of his friends playfully scolded the girls for their language and reminded Lu Shang to be careful at the front lines. His mother's messages followed, filled with motherly concern. She advised him to stay warm as the weather was getting colder and shared a news snippet about a level 5 martial artist who had fallen ill due to the cold, his strength waning. Lu Shang responded with a confused emoji and reassured her not to worry, knowing that she always fretted over such things. Among the numerous messages, one stood out from his friend Qin Xiaojun, who had recently returned to the military headquarters. Lu Shang opened the message to find a photo of Qin Xiaojun, Yu Fei, and Dong Qingxue, all smiles as they posed together. Seeing their familiar faces brought a sense of warmth and nostalgia. He zoomed in on the photo, particularly focusing on Dong Qingxue. Her presence in the picture made him happy, knowing that Yu Fei and the others were safe and back from the front line. Lu Shang continued scrolling through his contact list until he reached Dong Qingxue's profile. Opening their chat history, he saw an old message from her, wishing him well months ago. He responded with an emoji and a belated thank you, feeling a pang of regret for not replying sooner. Since the martial arts tournament, Dong Qingxue hadn't sent any new messages. He wondered if she had lost her phone, or if it had simply run out of battery. A sense of melancholy washed over him as he pondered the current state of their relationship, which seemed strained and distant. It wasn't as harmonious as before, and he couldn't quite pinpoint why. Lost in thought, Lu Shang suddenly remembered something important. He quickly called his butler, Wang Yin. The phone rang for a moment before Wang Yin picked up. "Do you have any orders, General?" Wang Yin's voice was calm and respectful as always. Lu Shang's tone was serious. "I need your help finding someone," he said. "His name is Lu Qiming, a new recruit from this year in the Eastern Military District. He's from Baihe City." As Lu Shang finished his meal, he wiped his mouth with a handkerchief, his gaze thoughtful. Wang Yan's voice broke through his reverie. "Due to the large number of personnel in the army, I'll need to conduct a thorough investigation. I'll inform you as soon as I have any information about Lu Qiming." Lu Shang nodded, still drowsy from his meal. "For now, there's no need to intervene. Just keep me updated on Lu Qiming's whereabouts," he said. Wang Yin acknowledged this with a simple, "understood," before ending the call. Exhausted, Lu Shang leaned back in his chair. He closed his eyes, his fatigue overcoming him. Within moments, he was fast asleep, transitioning into the dream realm. The dream realm was a surreal landscape, now populated by numerous zombies. Despite their menacing appearance, Lu Shang greeted them with a pleasant smile. "Hello, everyone," he said, his voice gentle and calm. "We won't be fighting today. I'm quite tired, so let's have a peaceful day. He floated towards the center of this dreamlike environment, calling forth the system panel. The familiar interface of the system window appeared before him. With a few taps and swipes, Lu Sheng navigated through the options. He spoke to the AI with a grin. Please check for new enhancements available. I've accumulated quite a bit of merit recently, so let's see what new upgrades we can find. The AI responded with a series of beeps, processing his request and beginning to search for potential enhancements. Meanwhile, in the headquarters of the 9th War District, a tense atmosphere enveloped the room. Marshal Shi Hongfei, a figure of authority and discipline, slammed his hand forcefully on the table. The resounding noise echoed through the room, drawing the attention of everyone present. Is it really true? Marshal Shi Hongfei demanded, his voice a mix of astonishment and urgency. Does Lu Sheng really possess a power of 12.5 stars? Admiral He Dingjun, who had been seated calmly, rose from his chair. His expression remained composed as he addressed the marshal. I personally confirmed it, he said. The power Lu Sheng wields is indeed that of a great grandmaster, surpassing even my own strength. Marshal Shi Hongfei's eyes widened with a mix of disbelief and joy. A broad smile spread across his face as he absorbed the news. At just 19 years old, he said, his voice filled with admiration, Lu Sheng's strength of 12.5 stars is astounding. It's more than enough to dispel any doubts we had about his potential. He paused, letting the weight of the revelation sink in. This is a significant breakthrough. If Lu Sheng's real potential is as great as we believe, he could very well become a martial saint. This is the kind of talent we've been waiting for. Marshal Shi Hongfei stood with a commanding presence, his posture straight and his expression a mix of satisfaction and contemplation. He placed one hand behind his back, his fist clenched in a gesture of triumph and anticipation. His thoughts drifted to the recent news of General Yu Fei's return. The arrival of Yu Fei and the subsequent discovery of Lu Sheng's extraordinary talent had brought a new wave of optimism to the Eastern Military District. With a pleased smile gracing his face, Marshal Shi Hongfei turned his back to the assembled staff, focusing his thoughts on the future. Admiral He Dingjun, he said with a voice full of authority, make sure to extend my congratulations to General Yu Fei. It is crucial to acknowledge the invaluable contribution of finding such a brilliant talent for our forces. Admiral He Dingjun, standing in respect, placed his hand over his chest and bowed his head. Understood, Marshal, he responded, his voice calm and respectful. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the military district, excitement erupted as Qin Shaojun returned, his exuberance palpable. He jumped up and down, shouting with glee, I'm finally back! I'm finally back! His joy was infectious, and he had waited a long time for this moment. Behind him, Dong Qingxue trailed, her expression a mix of amusement and mild exasperation. Qin Shaojun, still caught up in his enthusiasm, began to clean his clothes with his hands. He closed his eyes, recalling the unpleasant odors from his time away. I've been smelling pretty bad lately. Can't wait to get home and take a nice, long shower, he said with a grin. Dong Qingxue, still silent, could only shake her head. Qin Shaojun, now visibly excited, proposed, tonight, we should go see Lu Sheng for dinner. I'm eager to catch up with him. At the mention of Lu Sheng's name, Dong Qingxue's demeanor changed. Her cheeks flushed slightly, and she crossed her arms defensively. Turning away from Qin Shaojun, she walked off, her voice carrying a hint of reluctance. You go ahead. I'll pass on meeting Lu Sheng tonight. Qin Shaojun watched her retreating figure with a puzzled expression. Confused by her sudden reluctance, he crossed his arms and confronted her with a serious tone. What's going on with you? You haven't been yourself lately. I've noticed that you've been acting strangely since Lu Sheng arrived at the military district, ever since he participated in the National Martial Arts Tournament. Dong Qingxue stopped in her tracks, her eyes widening in surprise. She hadn't expected Qin Shaojun to notice her change in behavior. Her heart raced as she tried to hide her growing discomfort. Qin Shaojun's observation struck a nerve, revealing a deeper tension she had been trying to suppress. Qin Shaojun approached her, his tone growing more concerned. You always seem to act odd whenever someone mentions Lu Sheng. Is there something going on that you haven't told me? Qin Shaojun, with a genuine look of concern on his face, approached Dong Qingxue. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder, his expression a mix of warmth and determination. Dong Qingxue, he began with a friendly tone. Don't forget that we've been friends since we were kids. I need you to be honest with me. What's really going on? Dong Qingxue's eyes widened with surprise and confusion. She hadn't expected such a direct approach. Qin Shaojuan's next question cut through the air like a sharp blade. Do you have feelings for Lu Shang? The question struck Dong Qingxue like a lightning bolt. Her face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. Her emotions, already on edge, erupted. Without warning, she clenched her fist tightly, and her psychic powers manifested in the form of a shimmering knife. She spun around, aiming the blade menacingly at Qin Shaojuan's neck. With a fierce and intimidating gaze, she hissed through gritted teeth, "If you keep talking nonsense, I'll sew your mouth shut." Qin Shaojuan's eyes widened in alarm. His usual calm demeanor faltered as he raised his hands defensively, his smile turning strained. His mind raced, recognizing the gravity of the situation and Dong Qingshue's volatile temper. Whoa, hold on," he stammered, trying to defuse the situation. "Let's talk this out calmly." Dong Qingxue, still fuming, turned her back to him and began walking away, her body language closed off and resolute. Qin Shaojun, determined not to let this end in hostility, reached out and followed her. His voice was earnest as he spoke. "It's not healthy to keep your feelings bottled up. Hiding them won't solve anything. I've seen many girls with their own affairs, some even with younger guys. Your feelings are as clear as the sun and the moon." His words seemed to touch a nerve. Dong Qingshue's anger flared anew, and she involuntarily conjured more psychic knives. They hovered dangerously close to Qin Shaojun, their sharp edges glinting menacingly. Qin Shaojuan's eyes widened with shock and terror. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead as he struggled to maintain his composure. "Please, don't get angry," he pleaded. "If you like Lu Shang, it's not a bad thing." Dong Qingxue, her anger slowly subsiding, began to retract her psychic knives. The blades dissolved into the air as she looked up at the sky, lost in thought. Her voice, tinged with sadness, broke the silence. "What do you mean by liking and not liking?" she asked, her voice heavy with despair. Qin Shaojun sighed, placing a hand over his chest. He closed his eyes, choosing his words carefully. "It's about being honest with yourself. If you truly have feelings for Lu Shang, you should tell him. He's a person of great potential, and you might not find someone like him again. Sometimes, it's worth taking the risk." Qin Shaojuan's gaze sharpened as he approached Dong Qingxue, his eyes studying her with a mischievous glint. He placed a hand thoughtfully under his chin, his expression a mix of mockery and curiosity. "You know," he began, a smirk playing at his lips, "is it possible you think you're too old for Lu Shang? Or maybe you feel your martial arts skills don't measure up to his. That's why you're hesitating to make a move." Dong Qingshue's arms were tightly crossed over her chest, her posture rigid with a growing sense of frustration. The words struck a nerve, and her cheeks flushed with anger. Despite her irritation, she took a deep breath, struggling to maintain her composure. "Maybe you're right," she admitted, her voice tinged with sadness. "Perhaps those are the reasons I'm hesitating." Qin Shaojuan's eyes widened in genuine surprise. He approached her, his demeanor shifting to one of sincere concern. "You're serious?" he asked, his tone softer now. "I was just joking." He turned his back to her, running a hand over his forehead as he closed his eyes, contemplating his next words. "But seriously," he said, his voice filled with a mix of mock seriousness and genuine advice. "You should know what this kind of student-teacher relationship is called in society." Dong Qingshue's face turned beet red at the implication. Her frustration boiled over, and she reached out toward Qin Shaojun, attempting to halt his teasing. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and embarrassment. Qin Shaojun, still facing away from her, pressed on with a mocking tone. "Such a relationship is considered scandalous in society. You know, something that would definitely raise eyebrows." Dong Qingshue's anger flared. Her brows furrowed deeply as she clenched her fists, her psychic power manifesting around her like a swirling aura of energy. With a sudden burst of frustration, she launched herself toward Qin Shaojun, her energy crackling with intensity. "Die!" she shouted, her voice echoing with a fierce determination. She began to rain blows upon him, her psychic energy making the air around them shimmer with power. Qin Shaojun, caught off guard by the intensity of Dong Qingshue's reaction, started to flee. His usual composure gave way to a frantic scramble as he darted away from her wrath. I'm sorry, he yelled over his shoulder, his voice filled with a mix of fear and regret. "I was just joking. Please don't hit me." Despite his pleas, Dong Qingshue's anger was unwavering. She pursued him relentlessly, her spiritual energy manifesting in the sky like an ethereal display of her frustration. Qin Shaojuan's attempts to escape only seemed to fuel her anger further. Eventually, Qin Shaojuan's energy waned. He stopped running, placing one hand on his chest and the other on his knee, panting heavily. His face was flushed with exertion, and he closed his eyes, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Wait, wait," he pleaded, his voice strained. "I can't run anymore." As Dong Qingxue drew closer, ready to deliver the final blow, Qin Shaojun collapsed to the ground, a forced smile on his face. "Please," he gasped, his voice trembling with both exhaustion and humor. "Don't hit me. I promise I won't joke around like this again." Qin Shaojun, still on the ground and visibly exhausted, rested one hand on the earth while extending the other towards the sky. His expression was serene, framed by a sincere smile that seemed to capture both wisdom and warmth. "Look," he began, his tone earnest and reassuring. "We're in an era where age differences are no longer a big deal. It's not uncommon for a master in their 100th year to marry an 18-year-old student. This kind of thing doesn't even make the top 100 scandals anymore." Dong Qingxue, her expression a mix of contemplation and confusion, watched him intently. She remained silent, absorbing his words and letting them settle in her mind. The thoughts seemed to linger in the air, heavy with unspoken concerns and hidden emotions. To break the tension, Qin Shaojun inserted a coin into a nearby soda machine, his movements casual and nonchalant. As he pulled out a can of soda, he continued speaking with an air of playful certainty. "Honestly, I think you and Lu Shang could make a great couple. From the very beginning at the training camp, I could see there was some sort of chemistry between you two." He settled onto a nearby chair, popping open the can and taking a refreshing sip. Dong Qingxue, now seated next to him, crossed her arms defensively, her eyes narrowing as she addressed him with a serious tone. "Are you trying to get yourself into trouble with all this talk?" Qin Shaojun, unfazed by her response, continued with a pleasant demeanor. "I'm serious. I'm not just talking nonsense. In fact, I've even done a bit of digging into Lu Shang's feelings. I think there's a chance he might also be interested in you." Dong Qingxue listened in silence, her expression a blend of skepticism and curiosity. Qin Shaojuan's words had a genuine ring to them, and his sincerity was evident. "Let's face it," he added, his tone softer. "There's probably not a single teenager out there who hasn't had a crush on someone as attractive as you." At this, Dong Qingxue's face flushed a deep shade of red. Her initial shock gave way to a more subdued, introspective look as she stared at the ground, lost in thought. The compliment, though flattering, seemed to shake her resolve. "Forget about it," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. She reached for the pendant around her neck, a small gesture of comfort as she grappled with her emotions. Qin Shaojun rose from his seat, his demeanor shifting to one of determined encouragement. He clenched his fist and brought it close to his chest, a gesture of support and conviction. With a warm smile, he addressed Dong Qingxue. "How can you be sure of the outcome if you don't at least try? Perhaps you're worried about rejection or embarrassment, but don't let that stop you. With me around, you've got nothing to fear." Dong Qingxue's expression grew distant, her gaze falling to the ground. The hint of vulnerability in her voice was palpable as she confessed, "You don't understand. They won't approve of Lu Shang and me being together." Qin Shaojuan's face went pale, his eyes widening with alarm. His voice trembled as he asked, "Are you talking about your older brothers?" The mention of her brothers sent a wave of dread through him. He recalled vividly who they were: Dong Putian, a high-level Supreme Master and first-grade Grandmaster of the Central Military Region, and Dong Shengyi, who had been taken under the wing of the revered Chaoyue martial saint at just 16, becoming the third closed-door disciple by the age of 25. Dong Qingxue's face was somber as she explained, "Even though they're my half-brothers, they've always treated me like a daughter. They've protected me since I was little. You might even remember that they were the ones who gave you a hard time when we were young." Qin Shaojun put a hand under his chin, his gaze drifting to one side as he absorbed the gravity of her words. His own past experiences with her brothers came rushing back, memories filled with tension and fear. The reason for his reluctance to pursue any deeper feelings for Dong Qingxue became clear. With a serious tone, he crossed his arms and placed his foot on the chair, saying, "Your brother's obsession with you is almost like a disease. They're too protective. Maybe it's time they saw a doctor about it." Dong Qingxue, trying to lighten the mood, took out her mobile phone and showed it to Qin Shaojun. With a hint of a smile, she informed him, "By the way, my second brother, Dong Shengyi, just sent me a message saying he's planning to visit the military region soon. Qin Shaojuan's eyes widened in surprise at the news. Dong Shengyi is coming to the eastern military region? His voice carried a mix of astonishment and concern. Qin Shaojun approached Dong Qingxue with an earnest glimmer in his eyes. Extending his hand to one side, he spoke with hopeful conviction. If we can get them to meet Lu Shang, they might come around. He's an exceptional young master at just 19. What more could your brothers possibly ask for? Dong Qingshue's face remained clouded with sadness. Her arms were crossed tightly over her chest, as if trying to shield herself from the weight of her emotions. She looked down at the ground, her voice tinged with resignation. It doesn't matter how outstanding Lu Shang is. My brothers have made it clear that my life partner must meet their criteria for lineage, strength, and martial arts prowess. Their approval is not something that can be easily swayed. Qin Shaojun, sensing the gravity of the situation, tightened his grip around the soda can he was holding. The can crumpled under the pressure of his frustration. He stood up abruptly, his face etched with determination. There's got to be a way around this, he declared, his voice laced with defiance. He extended his hands dramatically to the sides and cursed the Dong family's rigid standards. If I ever become a martial saint, I swear I'll make sure Dong Qingxue and Lu Sheng end up together, regardless of what Dong Putian and Dong Shengyi say. Dong Qingxue, initially taken aback by his fervor, stood up and faced him with a mix of skepticism and resignation. First, you need to become a martial saint, she said, her tone both practical and gently teasing. Then we can talk. Qin Shaojun, caught off guard by her response, was momentarily confused. His eyes followed her as she walked past him, her expression sincere as she turned to thank him. Thank you, Qin Shaojun, she said softly, before turning her back and walking away from the area. Left alone, Qin Shaojun clenched his fists tightly, his gaze fixed on the ground as he mulled over the challenges ahead. His resolve hardened. If his friend's happiness was to be secured, he would need to act decisively.